The threat arrives during lunch period, delivered with the kind of casual malice that comes from someone who's never faced real consequences for their actions. Emma's fingers freeze around her sandwich as Dylan leans across the cafeteria table, his voice low enough to avoid teacher detection, but loud enough for everyone nearby to hear clearly. Tragic things happen on farms every day. Your parents might want to think about that before they keep rejecting reasonable offers for that land. The words cut through the ordinary cafeteria chaos like a blade. Emma looks up into eyes that hold no warmth, only calculated cruelty. Tyler positions himself at her left side, smartphone already angled to capture her reaction with the practiced ease of someone who's done this before. Equipment malfunctions, livestock incidents, structures collapsing. Insurance companies see it all the time, especially when families are being difficult about perfectly legitimate business proposals. Carter takes position on her right, completing the triangle that blocks any easy escape route toward the lunch line. Unlike his companions, his expression shows discomfort, but peer pressure and family expectations override whatever conscience might be stirring. Look, we're just saying your family should really consider what's best for everyone involved. The whole community is moving forward. Fighting progress just makes things harder. Emma's pulse hammers in her ears. This isn't their first confrontation, but something about today feels different, more urgent, more dangerous. She scans the cafeteria hoping to catch a teacher's attention, but the supervising adults are engaged in their own conversations, monitoring other sections of the crowded space. None of them notice the coordinated intimidation unfolding at a corner table among students who should be enjoying their lunch break. 40 miles away at her family's farm in rural Oregon, Max lifts his head from his afternoon rest with sudden alertness. The German shepherd's ears rotate forward, tuning into something beyond normal canine perception. His brown eyes focus on the horizon visible through the kitchen window, pupils dilating slightly. A low whine builds in his throat, barely audible but unmistakably concerned. Something is wrong with one of his people, even though she's miles away at school. His connection to the family runs deeper than typical pet attachment, rooted in training most of them don't even know he possesses. Back at Riverside High, Emma tries to keep her voice steady, despite the adrenaline flooding her system. I've told you before, my family isn't interested in selling. That land has been in our family for generations. It means something to us beyond just property value. Dylan leans closer, his varsity jacket sleeve deliberately brushing her arm in a gesture designed to look accidental to distant observers. That's exactly the problem with your thinking. You're being short-sighted about this whole situation. Development is coming to this entire region, whether individual families want it or not. Your little farm isn't going to stay isolated forever. The county is changing, and families who don't adapt get left behind. The psychological pressure is expertly applied. These boys have clearly refined their approach through practice, learning exactly how to stay on the legal side of intimidation while making their message crystal clear. Tyler continues recording, capturing Emma's obvious discomfort for purposes she can only guess at. Besides, think about how much easier everything would be with that kind of money. No more worrying about drought years or equipment breaking down. No more wondering if you'll make it through another season. The casual mention of their recent financial struggles hits like a physical blow. How do they know about last year's crop failure? How do they know about the irrigation system that's been held together with improvised repairs? Emma realizes these boys haven't just decided to harass her randomly. They've been gathering intelligence, researching vulnerabilities with disturbing thoroughness. At the farm, Max stands and paces to the window, his entire body language transforming from relaxed companion to alert working dog. His tail remains low, ears forward, every muscle coiled with anticipation. He presses his nose against the glass, breath fogging the surface as he scans the visible property with systematic thoroughness. The behavior would be remarkable to anyone trained to recognize it, but Max's handler isn't here to witness this moment of clarity. The transformation reveals capabilities that go far beyond ordinary pet behavior. Emma pushes back from the table, but Carter shifts position to maintain the loose circle around her. "Excuse me, I need to get to my next class." "Class doesn't start for another 20 minutes, Dylan observes with false helpfulness. "We've got plenty of time for a real conversation about your family's future. See, my father's development company has significant plans for this area. Commercial centers, residential communities, maybe even medical facilities. Progress that would benefit the entire region." The mention of his father's business interests reveals the true motivation behind this harassment campaign. This isn't random teenage bullying, but calculated economic pressure applied through their children as proxies. Emma begins to grasp the scope of what her family is actually facing. Tyler continues recording, his phone capturing every word and facial expression. The thing is, when development moves through an area, property values shift dramatically, sometimes overnight. Families that cooperate early get better deals than ones who wait until eminent domain proceedings get involved. The barely concealed threat makes Emma's palms sweat. These boys are essentially delivering messages from their parents, using the school environment to apply pressure that would be illegal if attempted directly by the adults involved. They're exploiting the social dynamics of high school to circumvent laws designed to protect property owners from exactly this kind of coercion. Max begins a pattern of behavior that would fascinate any animal behaviorist. He moves from window to window on the ground floor, checking sightlines across the property with systematic precision. His nose works constantly, processing scents carried on the afternoon breeze through gaps in the window frames. Every few minutes, he returns to the front window facing the main access road, as if monitoring for specific developments. The dog's internal clock seems calibrated to Emma's school schedule in ways that transcend normal pet attachment. There's something almost tactical about his vigilance, suggesting training that runs considerably deeper than basic obedience commands. Emma attempts to redirect the conversation away from her family's private business. "Look, I just want to finish my lunch and get through the school day. Whatever discussions need to happen about property, that's between your parents and mine. It's not appropriate for us to be having this conversation." Dylan's expression hardens at her refusal to engage on his terms. "That's where you're completely wrong. This affects all of us, Emma. Your family's stubbornness is holding up progress that would create jobs and bring investment to the community. Some people might view that as incredibly selfish. The accusation stings because it twists legitimate concerns about community development into weapons against her family's desire to maintain their agricultural heritage." Emma recognizes the manipulation, but still feels its emotional impact. She's being painted as the obstacle to community prosperity when all her family wants is to keep farming the land they love. Tyler angles his phone to capture her reaction to Dylan's words, creating a permanent record that can be edited to support whatever narrative they're constructing. Plus, we understand that change is scary, but fighting inevitable progress just makes everything harder for everyone involved. Smart families adapt to new realities. Carter speaks up again, his discomfort evident in his fidgeting posture. "Maybe we should just let her think about everything." No pressure, right? But Dylan shoots him a sharp look that makes it clear backing down isn't acceptable. Actually, thinking time is pretty much over. Decisions are being made with or without cooperation from every property owner. The question is whether families want to be part of the solution or part of the problem. The escalation in rhetoric signals a shift in their strategy. What began as seemingly casual conversation has revealed itself as a coordinated pressure campaign with specific objectives and timelines. Emma understands that this encounter isn't random. but part of a larger plan to isolate and intimidate her family into compliance. Max's behavior intensifies correspondingly, as if some invisible connection links his agitation to the mounting tension miles away at school. He begins low, intermittent barking directed toward the road, behavior that would normally prompt investigation from family members. But the house remains empty, except for one highly trained German shepherd whose specialized education is about to become critically important. Max moves to the front door and scratches once, experimentally. When no response comes, he returns to the window, whining with greater intensity. His usual afternoon routine has completely shifted into something resembling patrol behavior, the kind of systematic vigilance that suggests professional training rather than pet anxiety. Emma decides to end this confrontation on her own terms. "I'm going to finish eating now. You three can find somewhere else to have your discussion about community development." She reaches for her backpack, but Tyler smoothly intercepts the motion by moving his recording phone into her path. "Actually, we were hoping you might share your thoughts on camera for a school project about different perspectives on growth and regional change. It would be really valuable to get your family's viewpoint documented." The request reveals another layer of their strategy. They want her responses on record, probably to share with their parents as evidence of her family's attitude, or possibly to edit into something that could be used against them later in legal or social contexts. Emma realizes that every word she speaks is being preserved for purposes she cannot control. "I decline to participate in your project," she states clearly, ensuring the recording captures her explicit refusal to consent. "I don't give permission for you to record me or use anything I say." Dylan leans back with a cold smile. "See, that's exactly the kind of uncooperative attitude that makes this whole situation more complicated than it needs to be. People notice patterns of behavior, Emma. They remember who was willing to work together and who made everything difficult for no good reason." The implication that her responses are being evaluated and shared with adults adds another dimension of pressure. Emma begins to grasp that this cafeteria confrontation is essentially a test, with her performance being graded by people she's never met, but who apparently hold significant power over her family's future. At the farm, Max makes a decision that would surprise anyone familiar with typical pet behavior. He moves to the back door and noses at the latch mechanism, testing whether his understanding of household security extends to independent operation. When the door remains secured, he returns to systematic window monitoring, but his patience is clearly wearing thin. The dog's behavior suggests training in property security that goes far beyond normal companion animal education. Tyler continues recording as the lunch period winds toward its end. "Just think about what we've discussed, Emma. Change is coming whether individual families are ready or not. The families that get on board early are the ones that benefit most from the transition. And the ones that fight it," Dylan adds with casual menace, "well, they usually end up wishing they had made different choices. History shows that pretty clearly. The threat hangs in the air as other students begin clearing their tables and heading toward afternoon classes." Emma realizes that the timing of this confrontation was carefully calculated to conclude just as lunch period ends, preventing her from seeking immediate teacher intervention while ensuring maximum psychological impact. Carter finally shows some backbone, albeit minimal. "Come on, guys." She gets it. Message delivered. We should get to class. But Dylan isn't finished establishing dominance. "Emma, just so we're completely clear, this conversation stays between us, right? No need to involve teachers or parents in discussions about community business that they might not fully understand. These are complex economic issues. The request for secrecy confirms that these boys know their behavior, crosses lines that would bring consequences if properly reported. They're counting on her isolation and fear to maintain their operational security, keeping their harassment campaign hidden from adults who might intervene. Emma stands without answering, shouldering her backpack with movements that project more confidence than she actually feels. "I have classes to attend." She walks away without waiting for their response, but she can hear Tyler's voice behind her, still recording. Some people just need more time to see the bigger picture. Hopefully, understanding comes before situations get more complicated than they need to be. D. The parting comment ensures that her departure is framed as temporary retreat rather than successful resistance, maintaining psychological pressure even as the immediate confrontation ends. Emma walks to her next class, aware that this problem isn't going away, that these boys represent organized pressure her family is facing from multiple directions. Max, meanwhile, has positioned himself at the front window with the intensity of a sentry on high alert. His body language suggests expectation of specific developments, as if his internal timetable indicates imminent events requiring his attention. The afternoon sun streams through the farmhouse windows, casting long shadows across empty rooms where a trained protection dog maintains vigilant watch over property and family interests, with dedication that would impress any law enforcement professional. Emma settles into her afternoon biology class, trying to focus on cellular structures while her mind replays the lunch encounter. She makes a fateful decision, pulling out her phone to text her sister Madison, "Staying late for study group." Don't wait up. The lie comes easily, born from a desire to avoid worrying her family about problems she hopes to handle independently. Emma doesn't yet understand that isolation is exactly what her tormentors are counting on, or that her decision to face this situation alone will create opportunities for escalation she cannot anticipate. The afternoon stretches ahead with possibilities that none of the human participants fully comprehend, while one highly trained animal prepares for scenarios his education has taught him to recognize and respond to with professional precision. The real test of family bonds, training, and courage still awaits as the school day moves toward its conclusion. The final bell echoes through Riverside High's corridors as students flood toward buses and parking lots, but Emma deliberately hangs back. She watches through the biology classroom window as the yellow buses pull away, her fabricated study group excuse providing perfect cover for what she actually needs. Time alone to walk home and think through everything that happened at lunch without having to maintain a normal facade around other students. What she doesn't realize is that 3 figures in the student parking lot are also watching the buses depart, their attention focused specifically on confirming her absence from usual transportation home. Tyler scrolls through his phone with practiced efficiency, cross-referencing social media posts and family scheduling information he's been collecting for weeks. "Madison posted from the training facility this morning," he reports to his companions. "Location tagged about 45 minutes from here. Parents are definitely out of town until Friday, according to her mother's social media. We've got a clean window." Dylan adjusts his varsity jacket and starts his truck, a lifted pickup that announces his presence from blocks away. Perfect timing? Emma walking home alone gives us the privacy we need for a more detailed conversation than school allows. Carter shifts uncomfortably in the passenger seat. "Maybe we should just leave it alone for today." She looked pretty shaken up already. We delivered the message. "That's exactly why we need to follow through," Dylan snaps, his patience with Carter's hesitation wearing thin. "Half measures don't work with stubborn people. You either send a clear message or you waste everyone's time and look weak." Tyler climbs into the truck bed, still scrolling through accumulated data about the family's routines. According to Madison's workout posts, she never gets home before 6 on training days. That gives us at least 2 hours of uninterrupted discussion time with Emma. The level of surveillance and preparation reveals this harassment campaign's sophisticated nature. These boys haven't stumbled into intimidation tactics, but have developed them through careful observation and planning. Their parents' business interests providing both motivation and methodology for applying pressure through channels that traditional adult confrontation couldn't access. Max, meanwhile, has abandoned any pretense of normal afternoon behavior. The German Shepherd now paces between strategic observation points throughout the house with systematic precision. His behavior has shifted from concerned pet to professional security assessment, though no human observer is present to recognize the transformation or understand its implications. Every few minutes, Max returns to the front window facing the main access road, his attention focused on the distant tree line where the gravel drive disappears around the bend. His internal chronometer seems calibrated to Emma's expected arrival time, suggesting awareness of family schedules that transcends typical animal attachment patterns and reveals training most of his family doesn't know he possesses. Emma begins her 4-mile walk home through rural Oregon countryside, her mind churning through the lunch confrontation's implications. The October afternoon air carries the scent of pine and distant wood smoke, normally a comforting transition into her favorite season. Today, however, the approaching dusk feels ominous rather than peaceful. The long shadows stretching across the road remind her how isolated these rural routes become once students have cleared out on their buses. She pulls out her phone to call Madison, then hesitates. Her sister has been working so hard at whatever training program she's enrolled in, coming home exhausted most evenings, but clearly passionate about her new direction. Emma doesn't want to burden Madison with problems she might be able to solve independently. The decision to maintain her lie about staying late creates exactly the isolation her tormentors are counting on. Dylan's truck maintains careful distance behind Emma as she walks along the rural road, the boys timing their approach to coincide with her arrival at the most vulnerable location, the farm's front gate, where the nearest neighbors are too far away to observe or intervene. She's keeping that same pace, Tyler observes, tracking Emma's progress through binoculars. Should reach the gate in about 15 minutes. Madison's truck is definitely not in the driveway. We're clear. Carter stares out the passenger window at the passing farmland, his conscience warring with peer pressure and family expectations. My dad said just to make sure she understands the business realities. He didn't say anything about scaring her at her own home. Dylan's knuckles whiten on the steering wheel. Your dad also said results matter more than methods. Some people only understand direct communication. Sugar-coating important messages just confuses everyone and prolongs the inevitable. The conversation reveals how adult business interests have been translated into teenage action, with parents maintaining plausible deniability while their children execute pressure tactics that cross ethical and legal boundaries. It's a system designed to circumvent laws, protecting property owners from coercion and intimidation. Max suddenly freezes mid-pace, his head tilted at an angle indicating acute auditory focus. His ears rotate independently, processing sounds beyond normal human detection range. The German Shepherd moves to the front door and places both paws against the wooden surface, his body language indicating urgent desire to investigate external developments. When no family member responds to his clear signals, Max returns to the window, but his agitation has reached new levels. He begins low, intermittent barking directed toward the road. Not the random barking of a bored pet, but the focused warnings of a trained security animal detecting specific threats approaching protected territory. Emma's phone buzzes with a text message that stops her cold. Study group cancelled. Walking home. See you for dinner. The message comes from a number she doesn't recognize, but the casual tone suggests someone with intimate knowledge of her claimed plans. Her blood runs cold as she realizes her lie about staying late has been compromised. Someone has been monitoring her communications closely enough to know her stated schedule. The level of surveillance implies resources and organization far beyond typical teenage bullying. This is coordinated, funded, and directed by adults using their children as proxies to apply illegal pressure while maintaining their own deniability. Emma picks up her pace, suddenly aware that approaching dusk and rural isolation make her increasingly vulnerable. Dylan accelerates past Emma's position and arrives at the farm gate several minutes before her expected arrival. The boys position themselves strategically, Dylan at the gate itself, Tyler with recording equipment ready, Carter reluctantly taking up position to block potential escape routes back toward town. "Remember, we're just having a conversation," Dylan instructs his accomplices. Concerned community members discussing important local issues with a neighbor. Nothing threatening, nothing that could be misinterpreted if recorded or reported later. Tyler checks his phone's recording functions and backup storage. Everything uploads automatically to cloud storage now. Even if something happens to the device, we have complete evidence of whatever she says or does. We're covered. The technology advantage adds another layer to their intimidation strategy. Modern smartphones allow instant documentation and distribution of encounters, creating permanent records that can be edited and weaponized against targets who lack similar resources or technical sophistication. Max's behavior reaches crisis levels as his acute senses detect human presence on the property perimeter. The German Shepherd begins systematic attempts to breach the house's security measures, testing door latches and window mechanisms with intelligence that would astound anyone unaware of his specialized training background. His desperate scratching at the front door intensifies, accompanied by barking patterns that professional handlers would immediately recognize as urgent alerts requiring immediate human response. But the empty house provides no acknowledgement of his warnings, leaving Max to confront his training limitations in the face of developing threats his family doesn't even know exist yet. Emma rounds the final bend in the road and sees 3 figures positioned around her family's gate. Her heart hammers against her ribs as she recognizes the boys from lunch, their strategic positioning making it impossible to approach her own home without direct confrontation. The sight of them waiting specifically for her, having arrived ahead of her expected arrival, makes her realize this encounter has been planned and coordinated with disturbing precision. "Well, look who decided to come home after all," Dylan calls out with false friendliness as Emma approaches within speaking distance. "Funny thing about study groups, they have a way of getting cancelled when people have more important things to discuss." The revelation that they know about her cancelled excuse confirms their surveillance capabilities and removes any remaining doubt about the premeditated nature of this confrontation. Emma realizes her isolation is complete and deliberate, engineered by adversaries who have been several steps ahead throughout this entire campaign. Tyler begins recording openly now, no longer bothering to conceal his documentation. "Emma, we were hoping for a chance to continue our conversation from lunch. Sometimes school environments don't allow for the depth of discussion that important topics really deserve." Carter shifts his weight uncomfortably. "Maybe we could just talk for a few minutes, clear the air about any misunderstandings from earlier." But Emma recognizes this encounter represents escalation rather than clarification. The boys' positioning, timing, and technology use reveals sophisticated planning that goes far beyond teenage impulse or casual intimidation. They've orchestrated this ambush with specific objectives that extend beyond simple harassment. Max, witnessing the confrontation through the front window, makes a desperate decision that would shock anyone familiar with standard pet behavior. The German Shepherd retreats to the mudroom and systematically searches for alternative exit strategies, his training asserting itself in ways civilian dog ownership would never develop. His search leads him to where Madison's equipment hangs on designated hooks. Tactical gear most family members probably assume relates to outdoor recreation or hunting. Max's reaction to these items would fascinate any animal behaviorist, as he displays recognition and familiarity, suggesting extensive specialized education his family hasn't discovered yet. Emma stands frozen 20 feet from her own gate, every instinct screaming danger, while her rational mind struggles to process the calculated nature of this ambush. These boys haven't simply followed her home. They've orchestrated comprehensive isolation strategy, demonstrating planning capabilities far beyond typical teenage harassment. "Come closer, Emma," Dylan commands with casual authority of someone accustomed to obedience. "We're all neighbors here. No reason to shout across distance when we can have a civilized conversation about matters affecting all our families." But approaching means entering their controlled zone, surrendering minimal tactical advantage distance provides. Emma recognizes the manipulation while feeling powerless to resist. Refusing to approach would escalate the situation, but compliance would place her completely at their mercy on her own property. Max manages to manipulate the mudroom door latch using techniques suggesting extensive training in obstacle navigation. His success accessing normally secured areas reveals capabilities going far beyond standard pet education. Once outside, Max's behavior transforms completely. Gone is any trace of domestic animal confusion. The German Shepherd moves with purpose and precision that would impress law enforcement observers, his training finally able to operate without household restrictions. He begins tactical approach toward the front gate using cover and concealment techniques civilian dogs simply don't possess. His movement patterns follow professional protocols for approaching hostile situations without detection, suggesting education in advanced security methodologies. Emma takes 3 reluctant steps forward, close enough now to see cold calculation in Dylan's eyes. "This is private property. You need to leave." "See, that's exactly the hostile attitude that makes this whole situation so difficult," Dylan replies. "We're trying to have a reasonable conversation about community development, and you're treating us like criminals just for caring about our family's futures." Tyler zooms his camera in on Emma's face, capturing her fear for whatever editing project they've planned. "Besides, your sister Madison seems pretty invested in her new training program. Would be a shame if complications arose that affected her ability to continue, wouldn't it?" The mention of Madison sends ice through Emma's veins. These boys have researched her family thoroughly enough to identify pressure points and leverage opportunities extending far beyond simple property acquisition. They know about Madison's career development and are prepared to sabotage it if necessary to achieve their objectives. "You leave my sister out of this," Emma snaps, protective instincts overriding fear for the first time since this confrontation began. Dylan smiles coldly at her emotional reaction. "See, now you're understanding how family connections work. Decisions affect everyone, Emma. Your stubbornness creates problems for people you care about. That's just reality." Max reaches optimal positioning without being detected by the 3 boys, whose attention remains focused on their psychological intimidation tactics. The German Shepherd's approach demonstrates reconnaissance skills that would earn respect from any tactical unit, his specialized training allowing him to assess the situation while remaining unobserved until the optimal moment for intervention. From his concealed position, Max evaluates threat levels, escape routes, and intervention opportunities with analytical precision civilian pets cannot achieve. His education has prepared him for exactly this type of scenario, multiple subjects threatening family members on home territory, but faces critical limitation. His training emphasizes partnership with human handlers, not independent operation without clear commands. Really inspiring how much Madison cares about building a professional future, Tyler continues, still recording. Family support means everything for that kind of career development. Would be terrible if family drama interfered with her opportunities. Carter shifts uncomfortably as the manipulation becomes increasingly obvious and cruel. "Come on, guys!" We made our point about the business stuff. Maybe we should go. But Dylan has tasted success and wants to press his advantage. Actually, we're just getting to the important part. Emma needs to understand her family's decisions affect more than just themselves. Community relations matter. People remember which families were cooperative and which ones made everything difficult for no good reason. The escalation reveals the true nature of this campaign. These boys aren't simply delivering messages from parents, but are actively enjoying the power and control they exercise over Emma's emotional state. What began as economic pressure has evolved into psychological sadism. Max makes his own critical decision as he observes mounting threat to Emma's safety. His training protocols include provisions for emergency independent action when family members face immediate danger, and no handler is available for coordination. The German Shepherd begins systematic advancement using tactical approaches that would fascinate professional observers. Emma feels her emotional control slipping as the boys continue coordinated psychological assault. "Please, just leave me alone. I haven't done anything to any of you." "That's exactly the problem," Dylan explains with twisted logic. "You haven't done anything to help resolve this situation. Your family continues obstructing community progress while expecting everyone else to accommodate your selfishness." Tyler captures her tears on video, creating documentation that could be edited to remove context and present her distress as unreasonable or manipulative. "We really hope your family will reconsider their position before things get more complicated than they need to be." The veiled threat implies escalating pressure tactics that could target any aspect of her family's life. Their business relationships, Emma's school experience, Madison's career, or their community standing. The boys have essentially declared economic warfare using methods designed to avoid legal consequences while achieving their parents' business objectives. Max positions himself for optimal intervention while remaining undetected by subjects whose attention remains focused on their intimidation campaign. His specialized training allows him to evaluate multiple tactical options while preparing for action that will neutralize threats without excessive force. But he faces unprecedented challenge. His education emphasizes measured response and human oversight, not independent judgment calls about appropriate intervention levels. The crisis reaches tipping point as Dylan loses patience with Emma's continued resistance. "You know what, Emma? Maybe you need a more direct demonstration of how serious this situation really is." He reaches toward her backpack strap in gesture that could be interpreted as attempted theft, assault, or simply aggressive intimidation. The ambiguous nature creating plausible deniability while escalating physical threat beyond psychological pressure. Emma stumbles backward, but Carter's positioning blocks her retreat. Tyler continues recording, capturing footage that could be edited to make her appear aggressive regardless of actual sequence of events. "Just grab the bag," Tyler encourages. "Check what kind of stuff she carries around. Might be interesting to see what she keeps in her school supplies." The suggestion to search her belongings represents another escalation in violation of her rights. These boys are systematically breaking down every boundary, while maintaining enough ambiguity to avoid clear legal violations that could bring serious consequences. Max observes this critical escalation and makes operational decision his training has prepared him for. The German Shepherd's specialized education includes specific protocols for protecting family members when backup is unavailable and immediate intervention becomes necessary to prevent harm. His tactical approach begins with controlled intimidation designed to create advantage without unnecessary violence. Max emerges from concealment with professional precision, his movement and posture demonstrating capabilities immediately distinguishing him from ordinary domestic animals. The German Shepherd's sudden appearance behind Dylan creates instant tactical disruption. The boys spin around to face this unexpected development, their confidence faltering as they realize their isolation strategy has been compromised. "What the hell?" Tyler exclaims, phone nearly slipping from suddenly nervous fingers. "Where did that dog come from?" Max advances with controlled aggression that would impress law enforcement professionals. His movement patterns demonstrate tactical training in crowd control and threat neutralization, capabilities going far beyond typical guard dog behavior or protective pet instincts. Dylan tries maintaining authority in face of this new development. "It's just a farm dog, guys. Nothing we can't handle if it gets aggressive." But Max's behavior immediately contradicts this assessment. The German Shepherd positions himself between Emma and her tormentors with strategic precision, his body language conveying professional threat assessment capabilities civilian dogs simply don't possess. Every movement is purposeful, controlled, tactical. Carter backs away instinctively, recognizing something dangerous in Max's focused intensity. "That doesn't look like a normal farm dog to me. Look at how it moves. That's professional training." Max maintains optimal positioning while displaying controlled aggression, serving tactical purposes without crossing into excessive force. His training allows him to project overwhelming capability while maintaining legal and ethical boundaries, protecting both family members and potential subjects from unnecessary harm. Emma stares in amazement at Max's transformation from familiar farm companion to professional protection animal. His behavior reveals training and capabilities she never suspected, suggesting hidden aspects of her family's preparation for scenarios she couldn't imagine even existed. Tyler continues recording, but his phone now captures evidence that could support Emma's version of events rather than their planned narrative. "Should we call animal control or something? This dog looks trained for serious situations." Dylan refuses to retreat, despite clear evidence their tactical advantage has evaporated. "We're not backing down from some farm dog. Emma, call off your animal so we can finish our conversation like reasonable people." But Max's positioning makes clear this confrontation has reached its conclusion. The German Shepherd maintains strategic control while allowing the boys opportunity to withdraw voluntarily rather than forcing physical confrontation. His specialized training includes de-escalation protocols, prioritizing tactical resolution over dominance displays. Emma begins understanding Max's behavior, reveals preparation, suggesting her family has been anticipating threats she knew nothing about. His tactical capabilities imply training relationships and security considerations extending far beyond normal rural life. "I think we should leave," Carter suggests with growing urgency. "This whole situation is getting completely out of hand." We delivered the message. "Let's just go." Tyler lowers his phone as he realizes his recording now documents their harassment campaign rather than Emma's supposed unreasonableness. "Maybe we communicated our message effectively enough for today." But Dylan's pride prevents him from accepting tactical defeat at hands of what he expected to be helpless targets. "We're not finished here." Emma still needs to understand the consequences of her family's obstruction of legitimate business development. Max responds to Dylan's continued aggression with measured escalation, demonstrating professional training in threat assessment and proportional response. The German Shepherd's advance forces Dylan to choose between continued intimidation and personal safety. Tactical situation exposing the cowardice underlying his bullying behavior. The sound of approaching vehicle interrupts standoff as Madison's truck appears around bend in road. Her timing creates additional tactical complications for the boys whose harassment depended on Emma's continued isolation. Madison's early return represents operational failure, exposing their entire strategy to potential legal and social consequences. "We need to get out of here before her sister sees what's happening," Tyler mutters, recognizing their window has closed, but Madison's truck is already close enough to observe the confrontation at the gate, and Max's professional positioning makes clear this isn't casual social encounter between teenage neighbors. Madison exits her vehicle with tactical awareness matching Max's behavior, immediately assessing the situation with trained eye that recognizes threat dynamics most civilians would miss. Garrett makes final attempt to salvage control. This isn't over, Emma. Community business doesn't just disappear because people ignore it. Your family will need to make decisions eventually. Max responds with tactical positioning, revealing advanced training capabilities that would impress law enforcement while maintaining legal boundaries. His professional behavior ensures the boys' retreat is orderly and documented, preventing escalation while protecting family interests. The three boys retreat toward their vehicle, with Max maintaining tactical oversight of their withdrawal. Emma stands emotionally shaken but safe, realizing her ordeal has exposed family resources and preparation she never knew existed until this moment. As Madison approaches with expression combining concern for her sister and professional assessment of the threat that just retreated, Emma begins understanding her family's capabilities extend far beyond what she imagined about their rural farming life. The real revelations are just beginning, and nothing about their family will seem quite the same after today's events have forced hidden preparations into sudden dramatic visibility.